My beloved child, stop for a moment. Before you scroll away, before you let your thoughts race ahead to everything waiting for you today, I need you to become still. Take one slow breath. Quiet the noise around you, if only for a few moments, because this is not another ordinary message you happen to find. There is a reason your eyes have landed here today, and there is something I need you to hear before you take another step. You have been asking me for direction, even if your lips have not spoken the words aloud. Deep inside your heart, you have been longing for clarity. You have been wondering why your spirit feels restless, why your peace disappears so quickly, why something within you keeps whispering that not everything is as it seems. That quiet stirring inside you is not your imagination. Do not ignore it. Listen carefully, my child, because the path standing before you is not as harmless as it appears. What seems familiar may no longer be safe. What feels comfortable may slowly be leading you away from the peace I have been building inside you. And what promises quick relief today could leave your soul carrying burdens you were never meant to bear tomorrow. I am not speaking to frighten you. Fear has never been my desire for you. I speak because I love you too deeply to remain silent while danger quietly disguises itself as comfort, opportunity, or even something you have prayed to receive. Not every open door comes from my hand. Not every voice that sounds kind carries my wisdom. Not every feeling of urgency is my invitation to move. There are moments in life when the greatest danger does not arrive with darkness or violence. It comes softly, patiently. It speaks the language your weary heart wants to hear. It tells you that one more compromise will not matter. It whispers that one more conversation, one more chance, one more step back into the past cannot possibly change your future. But I see what you cannot yet see. I know where that road leads long before your eyes recognize it. That is why I am calling you to stop right here. Do not rush through these words. Do not dismiss the uneasiness you feel. If your heart has become strangely quiet while reading this, pay attention. If something inside you feels exposed, do not run from it. Sometimes conviction is not meant to condemn you. It is my mercy reaching you before regret ever has the chance. I know you have grown tired. I know you have fought battles that no one else fully understands. I know there are nights when you smiled in front of others while carrying silent questions that only I have heard. I have watched every tear you hid, every prayer you struggled to finish, every moment you almost gave up but kept walking anyway. Nothing about your journey has escaped my eyes, and because I know you so completely, I also know that you are standing at a moment that requires more than courage. It requires discernment. The next decision you make may seem small, almost insignificant, but small choices often become the turning points that shape entire seasons of a person's life. That is why I refuse to let you continue without first placing this warning before you. Stay with me until the very end. Do not leave after hearing only the beginning, because what I am about to reveal is not meant to satisfy your curiosity. It is meant to protect your future. Before this message is over, you may recognize something you have overlooked, understand something you have been struggling to explain, or finally see why your spirit has been restless for so long. Come closer, my child. Lay aside every distraction for just a little while. Open your heart instead of your defenses. I am not here to accuse you. I am here to rescue you before the wrong choice becomes the painful lesson you never needed to learn. Listen carefully, because today, my warning is not a sign that I have abandoned you. It is proof that I am still walking beside you, still calling your name, and still refusing to let you wander without hearing my voice one more time. My beloved child, I need you to understand something that your heart has struggled to believe for a long time. I do not warn you because I am waiting for you to fail. I warn you because I see what you cannot yet see. My view is never limited by today, by this moment, or by the emotions that seem so overwhelming right now. While you can only see the next few steps ahead, I already see where every path leads. I know which choices will strengthen your spirit, which relationships will quietly drain your peace, and which temptations will disguise themselves as answers to prayers you have been waiting for. That is why my warnings always come from love, never from rejection. Too often you have mistaken my caution for restriction. You have wondered why I closed a door you desperately wanted to walk through. You questioned why I allowed certain plans to fall apart, why some people slowly disappeared from your life, or why opportunities that looked so promising suddenly slipped through your fingers. In those moments, You thought I was withholding something good from you. But my child, I was never withholding my goodness. I was protecting your future from burdens you could not yet recognize. Sometimes the greatest blessing I give is not what I place into your hands, but what I lovingly keep away from them. There are dangers that never announce themselves with loud voices. They arrive quietly. They wear the face of familiarity. They hide behind comfort, excitement, loneliness, and even sincere intentions. They promise quick relief while quietly asking you to sacrifice the very peace I have been patiently restoring within you. This is why I speak before the wound appears. A loving father does not wait until his child is injured before calling out a warning. He calls while there is still time to change direction. Think about the shepherd watching over his sheep. He does not wait until the wolf enters the flock before raising his voice. He watches the horizon long before the danger arrives because his love makes him attentive. In the same way, I watch over your life with perfect awareness. I notice the conversations that slowly change your thinking. I notice the compromises that seem harmless at first. I notice the hidden discouragement you refuse to admit, the quiet pride you have excused, the unresolved hurt you continue carrying, and the subtle fears that have begun influencing your decisions. Nothing escapes my eyes, even when it escapes yours. You often ask me to bless your future, yet sometimes you resist the very correction that would lead you there. Understand this truth, my child. My blessings and my warnings are never separated. Every warning I give is already an act of protection. Every conviction I place upon your heart is evidence that I have not stopped guiding you. If I remain silent while watching you drift toward danger, that would not be love. Love speaks, love interrupts. Love reaches out before destruction has the opportunity to settle into your life. Perhaps you have noticed an uneasiness that you cannot explain. Perhaps your spirit has become restless whenever you think about a certain decision, a certain relationship, or a certain habit. You have tried to silence that feeling by telling yourself you were simply overthinking. You have searched for distractions instead of answers. But what if that holy discomfort is not anxiety at all? What if it is my spirit gently inviting you to slow down before you step into something that would steal the peace you have prayed so hard to receive? Never believe that my warnings exist to rob you of joy. Everything I ask you to release is because I have something far better prepared beyond your current understanding. The child who refuses to let go of broken glass cannot receive the precious gift waiting to be placed in his hands. In the same way, there are things you continue holding that leave no room for the life I am trying to build within you. You cannot embrace freedom while clinging to the chains I have already given you the strength to leave behind. Remember how often my word reveals this truth. Before the flood came, I warned Noah for years. Before destruction reached Nineveh, I sent Jonah with a message of repentance. Before Peter denied me, I lovingly told him what was coming so that failure would not become the end of his story. My warnings have never been announcements of hopelessness. They have always been invitations to return, to prepare, to trust, and to choose a different path while there is still time. So when you hear my voice calling you today, do not harden your heart. Do not assume I am trying to make your life smaller. I am expanding your future beyond what you can currently imagine. I am guarding dreams that have not yet come to life. I am protecting prayers that have not yet been answered. I am preserving the person I created you to become. What feels like interruption today may one day become the very reason you look back with gratitude instead of regret. That is why I am warning you now, my beloved child, not because I have lost faith in you, but because I have never lost sight of the beautiful future I have prepared for those who are willing to trust my voice above every other voice. Even when my guidance asks you to pause, to wait, or to walk away from something your heart still desires, remember this unchanging truth. My love always sees farther than your feelings. My wisdom always reaches beyond your understanding. And my purpose for your life has never been to limit you, but to lead you safely into the fullness of the peace, freedom, and hope that only I can give. My beloved child, one of the greatest dangers you will ever face is not the moment you deliberately choose the wrong path. It is the slow, almost invisible drift that happens long before you realize you have wandered away from where I was leading you. No one wakes up one morning intending to lose their peace, their joy, or their closeness with me. It happens one small decision at a time, one unchecked compromise at a time, one quiet excuse after another. until the distance between us feels normal instead of alarming. That is why I am asking you to examine your heart today, not with fear, but with honesty. The first sign that you are moving in the wrong direction is that your peace has become difficult to find. I am not speaking about a temporary difficult season, because every life will have moments of sorrow, uncertainty, and struggle. I am speaking about the deep, steady peace that remains even when circumstances are difficult. When you begin walking away from the path I have prepared for you, that peace slowly starts to fade. You may still smile. You may still accomplish your daily responsibilities. You may convince everyone around you that everything is fine. Yet inside, something feels unsettled. There is a quiet tension you cannot explain. Your mind never truly rests, and your spirit feels as though it is carrying a weight that grows heavier with every passing day. Do not ignore that burden, my child. Sometimes your soul recognizes danger long before your mind is willing to admit it. The second sign is that you begin making excuses for things you once knew were wrong. What once troubled your conscience slowly becomes easier to justify. You tell yourself that everyone else is doing the same thing. You promise it will only happen one more time. You convince yourself that the situation is different now, that you are stronger than before, that this time you will remain in control. But compromise rarely announces itself as rebellion. It arrives quietly, asking only for a small exception, then another, and another. Before long, what once seemed unthinkable begins to feel ordinary. Guard your heart carefully, because the enemy rarely pulls my children away through one dramatic decision. More often, he leads them away one comfortable compromise at a time. Another sign is found in the voices you have chosen to trust. Ask yourself honestly, whose words have been shaping your thoughts more than mine? Have you been listening more closely to fear than to faith? More closely to public opinion than to my truth? More closely to the constant noise of the world than to the quiet whisper of my spirit? Every voice carries a destination. Some voices lead toward wisdom, others lead toward confusion. Some strengthen your courage to obey me, while others slowly convince you that obedience is unnecessary, outdated, or too costly. Be careful, my child. The loudest voice is not always the truest one. You should also pay attention to what happens after you spend time with certain people or consume certain influences. Do you leave feeling encouraged to love more deeply, forgive more freely, and trust me more completely? Or do you leave feeling restless, critical, anxious, dissatisfied, and spiritually exhausted? Not everything that entertains your mind nourishes your soul. Some conversations quietly drain your hope. Some habits slowly weaken your discipline. Some influences fill your thoughts while emptying your spirit. Never measure something only by how enjoyable it feels in the moment. Measure it by the fruit it produces over time. Perhaps one of the clearest signs is that prayer has become something you postpone instead of something you treasure. You still believe in me, but you no longer seek my presence with the same hunger. You tell yourself you are simply busy. You promise you will pray later, read my word tomorrow, or spend time with me when life becomes less demanding. Yet tomorrow keeps becoming another tomorrow. Slowly, your heart grows accustomed to living on its own strength instead of mine. Remember, distance between us is rarely created in a single day. It is built through many small moments when you choose distraction over devotion. My child, I also want you to notice how easily impatience begins to control your decisions when you drift from my guidance. You start demanding immediate answers, immediate comfort, immediate success, immediate relief. Waiting begins to feel unbearable. Silence feels like abandonment. Delays feel like rejection. But my timing has never been your enemy. Many of the greatest mistakes people make are born from refusing to wait just a little longer for my direction. What is rushed by fear often ends in regret, while what is guided by faith is strengthened through patience. Do not overlook another warning sign: the growing desire to return to places I have already delivered you from. Old habits begin to look attractive again. Old relationships suddenly seem harmless. Old conversations become tempting. Memories become selective, causing you to remember only the comfort while forgetting the pain that once came with it. Be careful. Nostalgia often edits out the suffering and leaves behind only the illusion of happiness. Do not romanticize what I have already rescued you from. Above all, remember this, my beloved child. I do not reveal these signs to condemn you. I reveal them because I desire restoration. not punishment. If you recognize yourself in these words, do not lose heart. The very fact that your spirit is responding means my hand is still reaching toward you. It is never too late to turn around while your heart is willing to listen. One honest prayer can begin a new direction. One act of surrender can break a chain that has held you for years. One decision to trust my voice above every other voice can change the course of your future. So pause today. Search your heart without fear. Lay every hidden burden before me. I will not turn away from the child who comes to me with humility. I will lead you back, restore your peace, strengthen your spirit, and place your feet once again upon the path that leads to life. Because my desire has never been to watch you wander. My desire has always been to bring you safely home. My beloved child, there is something I need you to understand with great care, because your future will be shaped not only by the choices you make, but by the voices you choose to believe. Every single day, countless voices compete for your attention. Some speak through people. Some speak through your own thoughts. Some arrive through endless news, social media, entertainment, or conversations that seem harmless on the surface. Others come quietly, disguised as your own reasoning. Not every voice that speaks into your life deserves a place in your heart. If you do not learn to discern them, they will slowly shape your decisions until you no longer recognize the person I created you to be. One of the greatest deceptions the enemy uses is not forcing you into obvious rebellion. Instead, he gently fills your mind with voices that sound reasonable. They rarely begin by asking you to reject me completely. They begin with much smaller whispers. It isn't that serious. You deserve this. Just this once. No one will ever know. You have waited long enough. God understands. Little by little, these thoughts become familiar. Familiar thoughts become accepted beliefs. Accepted beliefs become repeated actions. Repeated actions eventually shape your character. That is why I tell you to guard your heart, because long before your hands act, your ears have already decided which voice they trust. You must also understand that not every encouraging voice comes from me. There are voices that flatter your emotions while quietly starving your spirit. They tell you exactly what your wounded heart wants to hear, but never what your soul truly needs. They promise comfort without repentance, peace without surrender, blessing without obedience, and freedom without truth. Their words feel pleasant in the moment because they remove conviction instead of producing transformation. But my child, comfort that pulls you away from truth is not comfort at all. It is a gentle trap dressed in beautiful language. Think about how the enemy approached Eve in the garden. He did not begin with threats or violence. He began with a question. Did God really say? That single question planted doubt where trust once lived. It caused her to question my goodness before she questioned the temptation itself. The enemy still works in much the same way today. He rarely attacks my word directly. Instead, he encourages you to reinterpret it until it no longer asks anything difficult of you. He convinces people that holiness is unnecessary, that compromise is wisdom, and that following their feelings is safer than following my truth. Be very careful whenever a voice encourages you to trust your emotions more than my word. There will also be voices from people who genuinely care about you, yet still cannot lead you where I am calling you to go. Not everyone who loves you understands my purpose for your life. Some will advise you to choose the easier path because they fear seeing you struggle. Others will encourage you to settle because they cannot imagine the greater things I have prepared for you. Even those closest to you may sometimes speak from fear instead of faith. That is why your first loyalty must always be to my voice. Love people deeply, listen respectfully, but always bring every piece of advice into my presence before allowing it to shape your decisions. I also want you to recognize another voice that often goes unnoticed, the voice of your own fears. Fear has a way of speaking with great confidence. It tells you that failure is certain before you even begin. It reminds you of every past disappointment while hiding every future possibility. It magnifies obstacles until they appear larger than my promises. Fear always asks, what if everything goes wrong? Faith asks, what if God remains faithful, just as he always has? Learn to recognize which question is leading your heart, because the answer you pursue will determine the direction you walk. There are moments when your own wounded memories begin speaking louder than my promises. Past betrayals tell you never to trust again. Past failures convince you that you will always fail. Past rejection whispers that you are unwanted, forgotten, or unworthy of love. Yet I have never defined you by your deepest wound. I define you by my purpose, my grace, and the price my Son paid for you. Do not allow yesterday's pain to become today's authority. Your past may explain some of your fears, but it must never become the voice that governs your future. How then will you recognize my voice? My voice does not manipulate you. It does not shame you into obedience. It does not fill your heart with panic or confusion. Even when I correct you, my correction carries hope. Even when I expose sin, I also provide the grace to leave it behind. Even when I ask you to surrender something precious, I replace it with something far greater than you can yet imagine. My voice always leads toward truth, peace, humility, and life. It strengthens your faith instead of feeding your fear. It produces conviction without crushing your spirit. It draws you closer to me instead of pushing you into hiding. So I ask you today, my beloved child, become more intentional about the voices you welcome into your heart. Do not believe something simply because it is popular. Do not accept advice simply because it is comforting. Do not follow a path simply because many others are walking it. Bring every thought before me. Test every influence against my word. Pray before you agree. Wait before you act. Listen before you decide. The more time you spend in my presence, the easier it becomes to recognize the sound of my voice above every imitation. Soon you will discover that discernment is not a special gift reserved for a few. It is the natural fruit of a heart that remains close to its shepherd. Stay near me, my child, and even in a world filled with countless competing voices, you will learn to walk with confidence because my truth will become the loudest voice within your soul, leading you safely, faithfully, and lovingly every step of the way. My beloved child, one of the greatest lessons I desire to teach you is how to recognize the difference between my voice and the countless emotions that rise within your own heart. Many of my children sincerely want to follow me, yet they become confused because they mistake every strong feeling for my guidance. They believe that if an emotion feels intense, it must be a sign from heaven. But I want you to understand something that will protect your heart for the rest of your life. Feelings are real, but they are not always reliable. Emotions can reveal what you are experiencing, but they cannot always reveal where I am leading you. If you allow every emotion to become your compass, you will often wander away from the path I have prepared for you. There will be days when fear tells you to run, yet I am asking you to stand firm. There will be moments when anger urges you to speak immediately, while my spirit quietly invites you to remain silent until wisdom has finished its work. There will be seasons when loneliness tempts you to return to people I have already asked you to release. There will be opportunities that excite your imagination, but deep within your spirit there remains an unexplainable hesitation. In those moments, my child, do not ask yourself only, what do I feel? Ask a far more important question, what is God saying? Your feelings may change by tomorrow, but my truth never changes. Remember how the prophet Elijah expected me to appear in the dramatic display of wind, earthquake, and fire, yet I chose to speak through a gentle whisper instead. Even today, many people continue searching for my voice only in overwhelming emotions or extraordinary experiences. They believe I must always speak through something dramatic, but more often than not, my guidance comes quietly. It comes through the steady conviction of my spirit, through the wisdom of my word, through peaceful discernment, and through the patient clarity that grows stronger the longer you remain in my presence. If you are always chasing emotional excitement, you may overlook the gentle whisper that has been guiding you all along. My child, never confuse anxiety with discernment. Anxiety fills your mind with endless what-if questions that lead nowhere. It keeps your thoughts spinning in circles until exhaustion replaces wisdom. Discernment, however, may warn you of danger, but it also carries clarity. Even when my spirit alerts you to something that requires caution, there is still an underlying sense of peace because my presence never abandons those who seek me. Anxiety leaves you trapped in confusion. My guidance leads you toward confidence, even if the road ahead requires courage. There are also times when guilt disguises itself as my voice. The enemy delights in reminding you of every mistake you have ever made, hoping you will believe you are too broken to be useful in my kingdom. He speaks in accusations that offer no hope, no restoration, and no future. But that is never how I speak to my children. When I convict you of sin, it is because I am calling you back into freedom, not because I desire to bury you beneath shame. My conviction is specific, loving, and redemptive. Condemnation is vague, relentless, and hopeless. Learn to recognize the difference. One draws you closer to me, the other pushes you away from the very grace that can heal you. Another mistake many believers make is allowing temporary emotional relief to become the measure of truth. Something may feel comforting today and still be harmful tomorrow. A relationship may temporarily ease your loneliness while quietly weakening your devotion to me. A habit may reduce your stress for a moment while slowly stealing your self-control. A decision may satisfy your emotions today while creating years of regret later. Never judge truth by the immediate comfort it provides. Judge it by the fruit it produces over time. My wisdom may sometimes ask you to endure temporary discomfort, but it always leads to lasting peace. False comfort often feels pleasant in the beginning but leaves behind emptiness that only grows deeper. Look carefully at the life of Jesus during his time in the wilderness. Satan appealed to legitimate human desires, hunger, recognition, and authority. None of those desires were sinful in themselves. What made the temptation dangerous was the invitation to satisfy those desires outside of my perfect timing and my perfect will. In the same way, many of the struggles you face today are not built around evil desires alone. They often involve good desires pursued in the wrong way, at the wrong time, or through the wrong source. That is why emotional intensity alone can never become your guide. You must learn to ask whether the path before you reflects my character, my word, and my purpose for your life. So how can you recognize my leading more clearly? Slow down. The world constantly tells you to react quickly, but my spirit often invites you to become still. Spend time in my word before making important decisions. Bring your questions to me in prayer instead of searching first for the opinions of others. Allow your heart to settle before choosing a direction. The more hurried your emotions become, the more important it is to remain in my presence until peace replaces pressure. I am never threatened by your honest questions. I welcome them because they bring you closer to me. My beloved child, I am not asking you to ignore your emotions. I created your heart, and I understand every feeling that passes through it. Joy, sorrow, disappointment, hope, grief, excitement, and even fear all have their place in the human experience. But I never intended for your emotions to become your master. They are faithful servants when surrendered to me, but they become dangerous leaders when separated from my truth. Let my word shape your thoughts before your feelings shape your choices. Let my spirit become louder than your fears, stronger than your impulses, and more trustworthy than your changing emotions. If you learn this lesson well, you will not only avoid many unnecessary wounds, but you will also discover a confidence that remains steady through every season of life. For my voice is never driven by panic, never ruled by impulse, and never shaken by uncertainty. My voice is constant, faithful, and true. Stay close to me, and in time you will recognize it above every other voice, just as a sheep recognizes the voice of its loving shepherd and follows without fear. My beloved child, there are seasons in your life when the greatest danger does not come from the storms around you, but from the people who quietly influence the direction of your heart. This may be difficult for you to accept because you have always tried to see the good in others. You have often chosen compassion over caution, patience over discernment, and loyalty over wisdom. Those qualities are beautiful when they are guided by my spirit, but when compassion is separated from discernment, it can keep you connected to places, habits, and relationships that slowly pull you away from the life I have prepared for you. That is why I want you to examine not only who you love, but also who is shaping your spirit. Not every person who enters your life is meant to remain there forever. Some people are sent to encourage you for a season. Some arrive so you may encourage them. Others simply become part of your story for a chapter before your paths separate. Yet because your heart values connection, you sometimes believe that every relationship must last forever. When someone begins drifting away, you immediately wonder what you did wrong. When I begin creating distance between you and someone, you often try to rebuild the very bridge I am gently removing. My child, not every ending is a tragedy. Some endings are my mercy, protecting the future you cannot yet see. There are relationships that slowly weaken your spiritual strength without ever appearing openly harmful. They do not necessarily tempt you into obvious sin. They simply make it easier to neglect what matters most. After spending time with them, you notice that your prayers become shorter. Your desire to seek me becomes weaker. Your thoughts become filled with unnecessary worry, comparison, resentment, or endless distractions. You leave their presence feeling emotionally exhausted instead of spiritually refreshed. Pay attention to these quiet patterns. Fruit always reveals what appearances try to hide. You have often measured relationships by one question: are they a good person? But today I want you to ask a different question. What kind of person am I becoming because of this relationship? That question will reveal far more than appearances ever could. Someone may genuinely care about you and still not be healthy for the season I have called you into. Someone may have good intentions and yet unknowingly keep pulling you back toward old fears, old compromises, or old versions of yourself that I have already begun healing. Good intentions alone are not enough. You must also consider the fruit their influence produces in your life. Remember how I called Abraham to leave behind everything familiar before leading him into the promise I had prepared. He could not remain where he was and still walk into the future I had ordained for him. Likewise, I called my disciples to leave their nets before they could become fishers of men. Growth often begins with letting go. Every new season requires the courage to release something that once felt safe. If you insist on carrying every relationship, every habit, and every emotional attachment from your past into your future, you may discover that there is no room left for the new work I desire to accomplish within you. My child, I know your heart fears hurting people. You worry that setting boundaries makes you selfish. You fear disappointing others more than disappointing yourself. But healthy boundaries are not walls built out of hatred. They are gates built with wisdom. Even during my earthly ministry, Jesus loved people deeply, yet he did not give every person equal access to his heart or his time. He withdrew to pray. He stepped away from crowds. He refused to allow public pressure to dictate his mission. If my son practiced holy boundaries while walking in perfect love, then you should never mistake wise boundaries for a lack of compassion. There will be moments when someone asks for more of your time than I have asked you to give. There will be people who expect you to carry burdens that belong to them, not to you. Others may continually draw you into conflict, drama, or emotional chaos, leaving you too weary to fulfill the purpose I have placed before you. You cannot pour living water into every empty cup while neglecting the wellspring I have placed within your own soul. Before you can strengthen others, you must remain rooted in me. I also want you to understand that some relationships become dangerous not because of open conflict, but because of quiet familiarity. They make compromise feel normal. They encourage conversations that slowly dull your convictions. They laugh at things your spirit once grieved over. They normalize attitudes that slowly harden your heart toward my truth. At first, you notice the difference, but eventually repeated exposure makes what once disturbed your conscience seem ordinary. That is how spiritual drift often begins, not with rebellion, but with gradual desensitization. Ask yourself honestly today, who inspires you to seek me more deeply? Who challenges you to become more patient, more faithful, more humble, and more obedient? Who reminds you of my promises instead of magnifying your fears? Treasure those relationships because they are precious gifts. At the same time, ask another question with equal honesty. Who consistently leaves you discouraged, distracted, anxious, confused, or tempted to become someone you no longer wish to be? Do not answer with guilt. Answer with truth. Discernment is not judgment. Discernment simply recognizes what is nourishing your soul and what is quietly draining it. My beloved child, you do not need to hate someone in order to create healthy distance. You can forgive completely while choosing not to reopen the same wound. You can pray sincerely for someone's blessing while recognizing they are no longer meant to walk beside you in this chapter of your life. Love does not always require constant closeness. Sometimes love is expressed through prayer, kindness, and release rather than continued access. Trust me enough to believe that I can care for the people you place into my hands. Do not cling to relationships simply because of shared history. Do not mistake familiarity for divine assignment. I am leading you toward a future that requires greater peace, greater clarity, and greater spiritual maturity than yesterday demanded. Some people will celebrate that growth with you. Others may resist it because your transformation reminds them of places where they themselves have chosen not to grow. Do not allow the fear of being misunderstood to keep you from obeying my direction. As you continue walking with me, you will discover that every relationship does not need to end with conflict. Some simply fade because your purpose is changing. Some become quieter because your priorities are becoming holier. Others remain, growing stronger than ever because they were rooted in my love from the very beginning. Trust my hand in every season. When I remove someone from the center of your life, it is never to leave you empty. It is to make room for deeper peace, healthier fellowship, stronger faith, and the people I have appointed to walk beside you as you become everything I created you to be. Stay close to me, my child, and I will always give you the wisdom to recognize who should walk with you, who should be prayed for from a distance, and who has been lovingly sent to prepare you for the next beautiful chapter of your journey. My beloved child, there are dangers that announce themselves loudly, and then there are dangers so quiet that you hardly notice them until they have already changed the direction of your life. The greatest threats to your spiritual life are often not the dramatic failures that everyone can see. More often, they are the small habits you repeat every day without giving them much thought. A single compromise rarely destroys a soul overnight. Instead, it is the slow accumulation of unnoticed choices, repeated day after day, that gradually weakens your desire for my presence, dulls your spiritual discernment, and steals the peace I long to give you. That is why I am calling you today to pay attention not only to your biggest decisions, but also to your smallest daily habits. What you repeatedly practice will eventually shape the person you become. Many people imagine that drifting away from me begins with rejecting their faith, but that is rarely how it happens. It usually begins much more quietly. A prayer is skipped because you are tired. A day passes without opening my word because you are busy. Then, another day. Soon, spending time with me becomes something you intend to do rather than something you actually do. Your heart slowly adjusts to living without my daily guidance, and before long you begin relying more on your own understanding than on my wisdom. My child, distance between us is almost never created by one great act of rebellion. It is usually built by countless small moments when you choose distraction instead of devotion. I know how demanding life can feel. I know your responsibilities seem endless. I know there are mornings when your mind is already racing before your feet even touch the floor. Yet ask yourself honestly, what receives the very first attention of your heart each day? Is it my voice, or is it the endless stream of notifications, headlines, messages, worries, and opinions that immediately compete for your attention? Whatever consistently receives your first focus will gradually shape the atmosphere of your soul. If you begin each day absorbing the fears of the world before receiving my peace, do not be surprised when anxiety grows louder than faith. There is another habit that quietly weakens many hearts, the habit of constant distraction. The world has become filled with endless noise. Every spare moment is quickly filled with another video, another conversation, another notification, another opinion, another form of entertainment. Silence has become uncomfortable for many people because silence leaves room for my voice to be heard. Yet I often speak most clearly when you are willing to step away from the constant noise. If your mind is always occupied, your spirit may never become quiet enough to recognize my gentle whisper. Do not fear moments of stillness. They are often where healing begins. Be careful also of the habit of feeding your worries more faithfully than you feed your faith. Every time fear visits your thoughts, you have a choice. You can continue rehearsing every possible disaster until your heart becomes overwhelmed, or you can bring those fears into my presence and allow my promises to become stronger than your imagination. Worry always demands your attention, but it never gives you peace in return. It promises preparation while producing exhaustion. It convinces you that constant thinking will solve tomorrow's problems, when in reality it only steals today's strength. I never asked you to carry tomorrow before it arrives. I asked you to trust me one day at a time. Another quiet habit that damages the soul is allowing bitterness to remain hidden beneath the surface. Perhaps someone wounded you deeply. Perhaps they betrayed your trust, spoke careless words, or left scars that still ache today. You may believe that holding on to that pain protects you from being hurt again, but unforgiveness quietly imprisons the one carrying it. Every day bitterness remains. It occupies space that I intended for peace. Forgiveness does not excuse what happened, nor does it erase wisdom or healthy boundaries. It simply releases your heart from becoming permanently chained to yesterday's pain. I do not ask you to forgive because the offense was small. I ask you to forgive because I desire your freedom. There is also the habit of comparing your life with the lives of others. This quiet practice has stolen joy from countless hearts. You look at someone else's blessings and begin questioning my goodness toward you. You measure your journey against another person's timeline and wonder why your own prayers seem unanswered. Yet you do not see the full story behind their life, nor do you fully understand the work I am accomplishing within yours. Comparison always blinds you to the blessings already surrounding you. Gratitude, however, opens your eyes to my faithfulness in every season. Stop measuring your life against someone else's chapter when I am writing a completely different story for you. My child, be especially careful with the habit of delaying obedience. There have been moments when my spirit gently prompted you to make a change, to apologize, to release something unhealthy, to begin something new, or to trust me in a deeper way. Yet you quietly whispered, later. Tomorrow seemed more convenient, next week felt more reasonable, but delayed obedience often becomes comfortable disobedience. Every time you postpone what you already know I have placed upon your heart, that inner conviction grows a little quieter. Not because I have stopped speaking, but because your heart has become more accustomed to ignoring my voice. I also want you to examine the conversations you repeatedly allow into your life. Words have tremendous power. Some conversations fill your heart with hope, wisdom, and courage. Others continually stir up anger, gossip, criticism, pride, or despair. What enters your ears eventually settles into your thoughts, and what fills your thoughts will eventually influence your actions. Do not underestimate the spiritual impact of the voices you consistently welcome. Every conversation is planting seeds. The only question is whether those seeds will produce peace or confusion, faith or fear, humility or pride. Remember the words of Jesus in John 15, where he called his followers to abide in him as branches remain connected to the vine. A branch does not become fruitful through occasional connection. It bears fruit because it remains connected every single day. In the same way, your spiritual strength is not built through rare moments of inspiration alone. It grows through daily faithfulness. Every prayer, every quiet moment in my word, every act of obedience, every choice to forgive, every decision to trust me instead of fear, these may seem small in isolation, but together they build a life that remains firmly rooted even when storms come. So today, my beloved child, do not despise the small choices. Do not assume that only dramatic sins can damage your walk with me. The enemy is often content to simply keep you distracted, spiritually sleepy, and too busy to notice your own slow drift. But I am awakening your heart today. I am inviting you back to the quiet disciplines that nourish your soul. Return to my presence. Return to my word. Return to prayer. Return to stillness. Return to simple daily obedience. For it is not the extraordinary moments that shape a faithful life, but the ordinary moments surrendered to me again and again. As you faithfully choose these small acts of devotion, you will discover that your spirit grows stronger, your mind becomes clearer, your heart becomes steadier, and my peace will once again guard every step of your journey. My beloved child, I never intended for my word to be merely a collection of ancient stories. Every person whose life is recorded in Scripture stands as a living testimony of what happens when someone chooses either to trust my voice or to ignore it. Their victories were written to strengthen your faith, and their failures were preserved to protect your future. Nothing in my word was recorded by accident. Every story carries wisdom. Every warning carries mercy. Every life reveals a truth that still speaks into your own journey today. If you will listen carefully, you will discover that many of the battles you face have already been faced by those who walked with me long before you were born. Remember Noah. Before the rain ever fell, I warned him about a danger that no one else could see. The sky looked normal. The earth appeared unchanged. People continued building, celebrating, buying, selling, and laughing as though tomorrow would be exactly like yesterday. Noah could have listened to the voices around him instead of mine. He could have questioned whether obedience was worth the ridicule. He could have delayed building the ark until there was visible evidence that a flood was coming. But he trusted my word more than public opinion. His obedience was not rewarded because he understood everything I was doing. It was rewarded because he believed my voice before anyone else believed it. My child, there will be moments when obeying me makes little sense to the world around you. Do not measure truth by popular opinion. Measure it by the one who sees the end from the beginning. Think also of Lot's wife. She physically left the city I was rescuing her from, yet her heart was still looking back. One glance behind her revealed that her body was moving towards safety while her heart remained attached to what I had already judged. How many people continue to do the same today? They pray for freedom, while secretly longing for the very habits that once enslaved them. They ask me to heal their hearts while continually revisiting the memories that keep reopening old wounds. They ask for a new beginning while refusing to release yesterday completely. My beloved child, you cannot fully embrace the future I have prepared if part of your heart is still clinging to the life I have called you to leave behind. Freedom begins not only when your feet move forward, but when your heart finally lets go. Remember Peter stepping onto the water. For a few glorious moments, he accomplished what seemed impossible because his eyes remained fixed on Jesus. The waves were there before he stepped out of the boat, and they remained after he stepped onto the sea. The circumstances did not change. What changed was where Peter placed his attention. The moment he focused more on the storm than on the Savior, fear became stronger than faith. My child, your peace is often determined by the same choice. If you constantly focus on the size of your problems, your heart will become overwhelmed. But when you keep your eyes fixed on me, the storm loses its power to define your future. I do not promise a life without waves. I promise my presence in the middle of them. Then consider David, a man after my own heart. His greatest victories came when he trusted me completely, yet some of his deepest pain came when he believed he could hide from my truth. One careless moment became a chain of painful decisions that affected many lives. Yet David also teaches you something equally important. When he finally humbled himself, confessed his sin, and returned to me with genuine repentance, I restored him. His failure did not become the end of his story because my mercy is greater than sincere repentance. Never believe the lie that one wrong decision has permanently disqualified you. As long as your heart remains willing to return, my grace remains greater than your failure. Look at Joseph. He was betrayed by his brothers, falsely accused, forgotten in prison, and forced to wait through years that seemed painfully unfair. At every stage, he could have chosen bitterness. He could have believed I had abandoned him. Yet Joseph remained faithful even when he could not understand my timing. Eventually, what looked like delay became divine preparation. The prison became the pathway to the palace. My child, some of the waiting seasons in your own life are not punishments. They are classrooms where I am strengthening your character before entrusting you with greater responsibility. Never assume that silence means I have stopped working. I often accomplish my deepest work in places where you can see the least. Do not forget Jonah. I called him to Nineveh, yet he chose another direction because my assignment made him uncomfortable. He believed he could outrun my purpose, but every step away from my calling only led him into greater turmoil. Even inside the darkness of the great fish, however, my mercy still pursued him. I did not abandon Jonah because he ran. I lovingly redirected him because my purpose for his life had not changed. Perhaps you, too, have been resisting something I have placed upon your heart. Perhaps fear, pride, or disappointment has tempted you to walk another way. Hear this with hope. I have not stopped calling you. My grace is still reaching toward you, inviting you back to the path I prepared from the beginning. And think of the prodigal son. He believed freedom meant leaving his father's house. He chased independence, pleasure, and immediate satisfaction, only to discover that everything promising fulfillment without the Father eventually leaves the soul empty. Yet the most beautiful part of his story was not his rebellion, it was his return. Before he could finish his prepared speech, his father ran toward him with open arms. That is how I receive every heart that sincerely comes back to me. I do not stand at a distance demanding perfection before offering love. I meet repentant hearts with mercy before they even reach the finish line. My beloved child, every one of these lives carries the same message. Noah teaches you to trust my warnings before others understand them. Lot's wife reminds you never to look back with longing. Peter teaches you to keep your eyes fixed on Christ rather than the storm. David reveals the restoring power of true repentance. Joseph proves that my delays are never wasted. Jonah reminds you that my calling remains even after your wandering. The prodigal son demonstrates that my mercy is always greater than your failure. These are not merely stories from another generation. They are mirrors placed before your own life. Learn from their obedience. Learn from their mistakes. Receive their wisdom before experience forces you to learn the same lessons through unnecessary pain. So today I ask you, my precious child, which example will you follow? Will you trust my voice before you understand everything, or will you wait until the consequences become impossible to ignore? Will you cling to what I have asked you to release, or will you believe that my plans are always better than the comfort of the familiar? Every page of Scripture points you toward the same unchanging truth. Those who walk closely with me may still face trials, but they never walk alone. And those who trust my voice above every other voice will always discover that my warnings were never meant to limit them. They were always meant to lovingly lead them into life, freedom, and the lasting peace that only I can give. My beloved child, there are moments when you pray with all your heart, yet heaven seems quiet. You search for my direction, but no immediate answer comes. You ask me to open a door, yet it remains closed. You cry out for relief, but your circumstances appear unchanged. In those moments, you may wonder if I have forgotten you. You may question whether I still hear your prayers or whether my love has somehow grown distant. But I want you to know this truth with all your heart. My silence is never the absence of my presence. Just because you cannot hear my voice in the way you expect does not mean I have stopped speaking. Often, my quietness is accomplishing something that loud answers never could. You live in a world that values immediate results. Everything around you encourages speed. Answers arrive within seconds. Messages are delivered instantly. Waiting has become uncomfortable, and silence is often mistaken for failure. Yet I have never rushed the work of shaping a soul. I care far more about who you are becoming than how quickly you arrive where you want to go. Sometimes the greatest gift I can give you is not an immediate answer, but the opportunity to grow while you wait. If I removed every delay, you might receive the blessing you asked for before your character was ready to carry it. Remember the life of Joseph. For years he lived with unanswered questions. He knew I had given him dreams, yet everything that happened afterward seemed to move in the opposite direction. Betrayal replaced favor. Slavery replaced freedom. A prison cell replaced the future he imagined. From Joseph's perspective, it may have seemed as though I had become silent, yet I was working every single day behind the scenes. Every disappointment was preparing him for responsibility. Every delay was strengthening his character. Every unanswered prayer was positioning him for a purpose far greater than he could understand. My child, never assume that silence means inactivity. I often work most powerfully in places your eyes cannot yet see. There are times when my silence protects you from making decisions based only on emotion. If I answered every prayer the moment your feelings became intense, you might mistake emotional urgency for spiritual maturity. Instead, I invite you to remain in my presence long enough for your heart to become still. Many people seek my hand before they seek my heart. They desire my answers more than my relationship, but I long for something deeper than quick solutions. I desire children who trust me, even when they cannot yet see the outcome. Think of a loving teacher during an examination. Throughout the lessons, the teacher explains, encourages, corrects, and prepares the students. But when the test begins, the classroom often becomes quiet. The teacher has not abandoned the students. The silence simply allows them to apply everything they have already learned. In much the same way, there are seasons when I become quieter because I am inviting you to walk by faith instead of constant reassurance. I am giving you the opportunity to trust what I have already spoken instead of demanding a new answer every time uncertainty appears. Do not confuse my silence with rejection. My child, rejection pushes you away, but my silence often draws you closer. When answers do not come immediately, you begin seeking me more earnestly. You spend more time in prayer. You search my word with greater hunger. You become more attentive to the quiet work of my spirit. In those moments, your relationship with me deepens in ways that would never happen if every prayer were answered the instant you spoke it. I care about far more than solving today's problem. I am preparing you for a lifetime of walking closely with me. There are also times when I remain silent because the answer I have already given has not changed. You continue asking whether you should return to something I have already asked you to leave behind. You hope my silence means I have changed my mind. But my child, my truth does not become different simply because waiting feels difficult. When I have clearly spoken through my word and through the conviction of my spirit, I do not need to repeat myself endlessly. Instead, I patiently wait for your obedience. Silence does not always mean I have nothing to say. Sometimes it means I have already spoken, and I am inviting you to trust what you already know. Remember Elijah on Mount Horeb. He expected to encounter me through the wind, the earthquake, and the fire, yet I revealed myself through a gentle whisper. Many people miss my voice because they are searching only for dramatic signs. They expect overwhelming emotions, extraordinary miracles, or unmistakable supernatural experiences. Yet I often speak through quiet conviction, through scripture that suddenly becomes alive, through peace that settles over your heart, or through wisdom that gently grows clearer as you continue walking with me. If your life is filled with constant noise, you may mistake my quietness for absence, when in reality I have been whispering all along. My beloved child, I know waiting is not easy. I know there are nights when you long for certainty. I know there are mornings when you wish I would simply tell you exactly what comes next. But trust me in this. If I revealed every detail of your future today, you might depend on the plan more than the planner. You might begin trusting information instead of trusting me. That is why faith has always been the pathway to intimacy. You take one step, and I provide light for the next. You obey what you already understand, and I reveal what comes afterward. So, if you find yourself in a season where, my voice seems quieter than before, do not lose heart. Continue praying, even when you do not yet hear the answer. Continue reading my word, even when your emotions feel dry. Continue obeying the truth you already know while you wait for greater clarity. My silence is never empty. It is filled with unseen preparation, hidden protection, quiet transformation, and perfect timing. I have not forgotten your name. I have not overlooked your tears. I have not ignored your prayers. Even now, while you are waiting, I am arranging circumstances, strengthening your spirit, refining your character, and preparing blessings that could never be produced through haste. Hold on to my promises, my beloved child, because when the time is right, you will look back on this season of silence and discover that it was never a season without me. It was a season where I was working more deeply than words alone could ever express. My beloved child, there is a truth I want you to carry deep within your heart, because it has the power to change the course of your life. Every act of obedience carries a cost, but every act of disobedience carries a far greater one. The difference is that the cost of obedience is usually immediate, while the cost of disobedience often remains hidden until much later. That is why so many people choose the easier path without realizing they are quietly exchanging temporary comfort for lasting sorrow. Today, I want you to see beyond this present moment. I want you to look not only at what feels easier today, but at where each decision will lead tomorrow. There are times when I ask you to release something you deeply love. I may ask you to walk away from a relationship that no longer honors me, to surrender a habit that has slowly gained control over your heart, or to close a door that once brought you comfort but now keeps you from growing. In those moments, obedience can feel painful. It may feel as though you are losing something precious. Your emotions may cry out for one more chance, one more conversation, one more compromise, one more reason to delay. Yet what you call loss today may actually be my protection for your tomorrow. My child, never judge obedience by how it feels in the moment. The farmer does not enjoy breaking the hard ground before planting seed, yet he knows the harvest cannot come without first disturbing the soil. The surgeon's knife brings temporary pain, but it is used to remove what would otherwise destroy the body. In the same way, my correction may wound your pride, challenge your desires, or require you to release something familiar, but it is always working toward healing rather than harm. I never ask you to let go simply to leave your hands empty. I ask you to release what limits you so I can place something greater within your reach. Think about Abraham when I asked him to leave the land he had always known. I did not reveal every detail of the journey before asking for his obedience. I simply called him to trust me. Every step away from the familiar became a step toward my promise. Had Abraham waited until he understood everything, he would never have experienced all that I had prepared for him. My child, obedience often begins before understanding. Faith moves forward while certainty is still catching up. Remember also the rich young ruler who came to Jesus with sincere questions. He desired eternal life, yet when he was asked to surrender the one thing that held his heart, he walked away grieving because he valued temporary security more than eternal treasure. His greatest loss was not his wealth. His greatest loss was the opportunity to follow Christ more closely. Many people still face that same choice today. They cling tightly to what feels safe while slowly letting go of the greater purpose I have prepared for them. You often fear what obedience will cost, but rarely stop to consider what disobedience will eventually demand. Disobedience rarely sends an invoice immediately. Instead, it quietly accumulates interest. A small compromise becomes a habit. A habit becomes a stronghold. A stronghold begins shaping your character until you hardly recognize the person you have become. What once troubled your conscience eventually feels normal. Peace slowly fades. Joy quietly disappears. Your prayers become weaker. Your heart grows heavier. And one day you find yourself wondering how you drifted so far from the closeness we once shared. My child, no one arrives there overnight. Every long journey away from me begins with one small step that seemed harmless at the time. Do not believe the lie that you have plenty of time to obey later. Delayed obedience often becomes permanent hesitation. Every time you ignore the gentle prompting of my spirit, your heart becomes a little less sensitive to my voice. Not because I stop speaking, but because repeated resistance gradually hardens the places where conviction once lived. I do not warn you about this to fill you with fear. I warn you because I desire to keep your heart tender, responsive, and alive to my leading. There will be moments when obedience requires you to disappoint people in order to remain faithful to me. Some will misunderstand your boundaries. Others may question your decisions or accuse you of changing. But remember this, it is better to endure temporary misunderstanding than lifelong regret. You cannot follow every expectation placed upon you and still remain faithful to every direction I give you. At times, choosing my will means having the courage to stand alone until others understand what I have already shown you. My beloved child, I know that surrender is rarely easy. I know there are tears that accompany difficult decisions. I know there are nights when letting go feels like breaking apart. But I also know what waits on the other side of faithful obedience. I have seen hearts restored after years of bondage. I have watched broken families experience healing because one person chose to obey me instead of following bitterness. I have seen addictions lose their grip because someone trusted my strength more than their weakness. I have witnessed impossible doors open because a faithful child refused to compromise when compromise seemed easier. These miracles did not begin with dramatic moments. They began with one simple decision to trust my voice above every competing voice. So today, my beloved child, do not measure your future by the temporary discomfort obedience may require. Measure it by the lasting peace it will produce. Every step of faith plants a seed that will one day bear fruit. Every act of surrender strengthens your spirit. Every choice to obey, even when no one else understands, draws you closer to the life I created you to live. Walk forward without fear. Leave behind what I have asked you to release. Trust that I never remove anything from your life without preparing something far better in its place. For my plans have never been designed to burden you, but to lead you into freedom, deeper joy, unwavering peace, and the abundant life that can only be found in faithful obedience to me. My beloved child, I want you to become very attentive to something that many people misunderstand. Not every feeling of urgency comes from me. Not every door that seems ready to close is a door you are meant to run through. Not every opportunity that demands an immediate answer carries my blessing. The world often tells you that if you hesitate, you will lose everything. Fear whispers that if you do not act right now, you will never have another chance. Pressure insists that you must decide before your heart has time to become still. But that is not how I lead. My children, I am the God of truth, not confusion. I guide with wisdom, not panic. I lead with peace, not manipulation. Think back to the times when you made decisions you later regretted. How many of them were made while your heart was calm, your mind was clear, and your spirit was resting in my presence? Very few. Most painful choices are made when people feel rushed, cornered, emotionally overwhelmed, or afraid of missing something. Pressure has a way of making temporary situations appear permanent. It magnifies fear while shrinking wisdom. It convinces you that acting quickly is more important than acting faithfully. Yet I have never asked my children to sacrifice discernment on the altar of urgency. Remember the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. Satan did not tempt him only with sinful desires. He tempted him to act outside of my perfect timing. He invited Jesus to satisfy legitimate needs in illegitimate ways. Hunger was real, authority was promised, protection was available, but the timing and the method were wrong. My beloved child, many of the pressures you face today work in exactly the same way. They encourage you to pursue good things without waiting for my direction. They tell you that if something seems beneficial, you should seize it immediately. But my blessings never require you to abandon my wisdom in order to receive them. There will be people who demand immediate answers from you. They may say, if you truly cared, you would decide today. Others may pressure you into commitments before you have had time to pray. Some opportunities will appear so attractive that you fear they will disappear if you pause to seek my guidance. Yet ask yourself this simple question: if something truly comes from me, why would it require you to ignore my voice in order to receive it? I am not threatened by your willingness to seek me first. What I have prepared for you will never be ruined because you took time to pray. What is truly mine can withstand your obedience. The enemy understands something that many people overlook. He knows that a restless heart rarely makes wise decisions. If he can fill your thoughts with enough noise, enough anxiety, enough emotional pressure, he can often persuade you to move before discernment has an opportunity to speak. He does not always need to convince you to choose evil. Sometimes he only needs to convince you to choose too quickly. Haste has caused countless people to enter relationships I never intended, accept opportunities that stole their peace, speak words that wounded those they loved, or abandon dreams I had only asked them to wait for a little longer. My child, my spirit never competes with panic. Even when I call you toward something courageous, there is still a quiet confidence beneath my leading. Think of Peter stepping out of the boat. The storm still raged around him, yet the invitation came from the steady voice of Christ, not from fear. Think of Moses standing before the Red Sea. The people around him panicked, but my instruction was clear. Think of David before Goliath. Others were overwhelmed by the giant, but David moved with confidence because he trusted my presence more than the threat before him. In every one of these moments, courage was born from faith, not from emotional pressure. I want you to learn the difference between holy conviction and unhealthy urgency. Holy conviction draws you closer to me. It encourages prayer. It deepens your trust. It may challenge your comfort, but it never steals your peace. Unhealthy urgency does the opposite. It fills your mind with racing thoughts. It convinces you that waiting is dangerous. It urges you to act before seeking counsel, before opening my word, before allowing your emotions to settle. One leads to wisdom. The other often leads to regret. When your heart feels overwhelmed, resist the temptation to make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Instead, come into my presence. Slow your breathing, quiet your thoughts. Open my word before opening another conversation. Let prayer become your first response rather than your last resort. You do not lose anything by waiting upon me, but you can lose much by running ahead without me. My timing has never been late. It has always been perfectly aligned with what is best for your soul. There will be seasons when others move faster than you. You may watch people make quick decisions while you remain in prayer. Do not mistake their speed for wisdom. The world celebrates those who move first, but heaven honors those who move faithfully. A delayed blessing received in my perfect timing will always bring more peace than an early opportunity gained through fear. You are not in competition with anyone else. I am writing your story according to my purpose, not according to someone else's timeline. My beloved child, if you ever find yourself standing at a crossroads where fear is shouting, emotions are racing, and pressure is demanding an immediate answer, pause before you take another step. Ask yourself, does this pressure draw me closer to the heart of God or farther from His peace? If the answer is unclear, wait. If your spirit remains unsettled, pray again. If confusion continues to grow, do not mistake it for my guidance. I am not the author of confusion, but of peace. I do not manipulate my children through panic. I teach them to walk by faith, one steady step at a time. So today I invite you to release the burden of feeling that everything depends upon your immediate action. Your future is not secured by your ability to rush. It is secured by my faithfulness. Trust that what I have prepared for you cannot be stolen by a moment of honest prayer. Trust that my plans do not require frantic striving to survive. Walk slowly enough to hear my voice. Wait patiently enough to recognize my direction. And remember this always. Pressure may be loud, but my truth is stronger. Fear may demand haste, but my peace will always lead you with quiet confidence into the path that brings lasting life. My beloved child, after everything I have spoken to your heart, I do not want you to leave this moment believing that my purpose is only to warn you about danger. My warnings are never the destination, they are the pathway to something greater. Every time I ask you to release something that weakens your soul, it is because I am preparing to place something far more beautiful into your life. I never remove without purpose. I never close one door without already seeing another that better serves my plan for you. You may not understand what I am preparing today, but I have been working on your future long before you ever realized you needed my help. Even now, while you are wondering what comes next, my hands are already arranging what your eyes have not yet seen. There have been moments when you believed you were simply waiting, but you were never truly standing still. While you thought nothing was changing, I was quietly shaping your heart. While you believed the delay meant disappointment, I was strengthening your character. While you questioned why certain prayers remained unanswered, I was preparing you to receive blessings that would have overwhelmed you if they had arrived too soon. You often measure progress by visible results, but I measure it by the transformation taking place within your spirit. What I am building inside you will always matter more than what I place around you. My child, I know you have looked at closed doors and wondered if they were signs of rejection. I know you have watched opportunities disappear and relationships come to an end, wondering whether you somehow failed me. But many of the things you have called losses were actually acts of my protection. Had I allowed every desire of your heart to come to pass exactly when you wanted, some of those very things would have distracted you from the purpose I created you to fulfill. There are blessings that become burdens when received before the proper season. That is why my timing is never random. My delays are filled with wisdom that reaches far beyond what you can currently understand. Remember Joseph? Before I placed him in the palace, I first developed integrity in the prison. Before I entrusted him with influence over nations, I taught him faithfulness in places where no one applauded his obedience. Had Joseph received authority before his character was prepared, the weight of that responsibility could have destroyed him. Instead, every painful season became part of my preparation. In the same way, I am doing work within you that cannot be rushed. The waiting is not wasted. Every lesson, every disappointment, every act of quiet obedience is becoming part of the foundation for what is still ahead. Do not compare your journey with anyone else's. You often look around and wonder why others seem to be moving ahead while you remain in a season of waiting. But you are comparing different assignments, different callings, and different stories. I have never asked you to measure your progress by another person's timeline. I have written your story with a wisdom that perfectly fits the life I designed for you. What I am preparing for you requires experiences that someone else may never need. Trust that my plan is personal because my love for you is personal. There are gifts I am preparing that cannot be purchased, earned by human effort, or forced into existence through endless striving. I am preparing deeper peace that is no longer dependent upon perfect circumstances. I am preparing stronger faith that remains steady even when questions remain unanswered. I am preparing wisdom that will help you recognize truth when deception surrounds you. I am preparing relationships that strengthen your calling instead of distracting you from it. I am preparing opportunities that align with my purpose rather than simply satisfying temporary desires. Most importantly, I am preparing you to become the person who can carry these blessings with humility, gratitude, and unwavering dependence upon me. Never believe that your current season defines your future. The place where you stand today is not the final chapter of your story. Seeds spend time hidden beneath the soil before anyone sees signs of life. A tree develops deep roots long before it bears visible fruit. In the same way, I am establishing unseen foundations within your life. Others may only notice what has not happened yet, but I see what is already growing beneath the surface. I see the patience you are learning. I see the courage you continue to choose. I see every quiet act of faith that no one else celebrates. None of it is forgotten. Every step of obedience is preparing you for the moment when my promises unfold in their appointed time. My beloved child, I also want you to understand that what I am preparing is far greater than earthly success alone. The world often measures blessing by wealth, recognition, influence, or comfort. But my greatest gifts begin within the heart. What good would it be to gain everything the world admires while losing the peace that only I can give? I desire to bless you in ways that endure long after temporary achievements fade away. I am forming a heart that remains gentle in success, faithful in difficulty, humble in victory, and confident because it rests in my presence rather than human approval. So do not grow discouraged if the road seems longer than you expected. Do not assume my silence means my hands are idle. Even now, while you continue to trust me one day at a time, I am opening doors you cannot yet see, closing paths that would have harmed you, connecting circumstances in ways that only eternity will fully reveal, and shaping a future more beautiful than your imagination has been able to picture. Hold tightly to hope, my precious child. Continue walking faithfully even when the destination remains hidden. Continue choosing obedience even when the reward has not yet appeared. For I am a faithful Father, and I never begin a good work without also bringing it to completion. What I am preparing for you is worth every lesson, every delay, every surrender, and every step of faith. Trust me a little longer, and one day you will look back with grateful eyes, realizing that every moment of waiting was gently leading you into something far greater than anything you would have chosen for yourself. My beloved child, hearing my warning is only the beginning. What truly changes your life is how you choose to respond once you have heard my voice. Many people listen with emotion, feel conviction for a moment, and then quietly return to the same habits, the same compromises, and the same patterns that have kept them bound for years. They mistake being moved by my word for being transformed by it. But I did not speak to stir your emotions for a single day. I spoke because I desire to change the direction of your life. A warning that is ignored becomes a memory. A warning that is embraced becomes the beginning of wisdom. Today, I am inviting you to do more than simply agree with my words. I am calling you to act upon them with courage, humility, and trust. The first response I ask of you is honesty. Come before me without pretending that everything is fine. I already know the places where your heart has grown weary. I know the secret fears you have hidden from everyone else. I know the temptations you continue to wrestle with and the questions you are afraid to ask aloud. You cannot surprise me with the truth because I have seen every part of your journey from the beginning. What I desire is not perfection but honesty. When you bring your heart into my light without excuses or disguises, healing can finally begin. Remember, I cannot heal the wound you continue pretending does not exist. Next, I ask you to slow down. The world encourages quick reactions, but my wisdom is often found in quiet surrender. Do not rush past this moment simply because it feels uncomfortable. Sit with my word. Allow it to search your thoughts and reveal the places where change is needed. Conviction is not something to escape from. It is my loving hand gently leading you away from destruction and toward life. Do not silence that gentle voice with endless distractions. Let it remain with you until it produces real transformation. My child, true repentance is more than feeling sorry for what has happened. It is choosing a new direction. It is turning away from the path that has stolen your peace and turning your face back toward me. There will be times when this requires difficult decisions. You may need to end conversations that continually weaken your faith. You may need to release relationships that keep drawing you back into old patterns. You may need to let go of habits that once brought temporary comfort but now leave your soul empty. Do not fear these changes. Every step away from bondage is a step toward the freedom I have prepared for you. Do not wait until you feel strong enough to obey. Obedience is not the reward for strength. It is often the very path through which I give you strength. If you wait until every fear disappears before following me, you may wait forever. Instead, take one faithful step today. Pray even if your words feel small. Open my word, even if your mind feels distracted. Forgive, even if your emotions have not yet caught up. Trust me, even when you cannot yet see the outcome. Every act of obedience, no matter how small it appears, becomes another stone laid upon the foundation of a transformed life. I also want you to stop carrying guilt after you have genuinely repented. The enemy loves to keep reminding you of the person you used to be. He wants you to believe that your failures define your future. But my grace speaks a different language. When you come to me with a sincere heart, I do not merely tolerate you, I restore you. I lift your head, I strengthen your spirit, I teach you to walk again. Do not keep reopening the prison door that I have already unlocked. Accept the forgiveness I freely offer, and begin living as someone who has truly been made new. Surround yourself with what strengthens your spirit. Fill your mind with my truth instead of the constant noise of fear and doubt. Spend time with people who encourage you to seek me more deeply. Build habits that nourish your soul instead of merely entertaining your thoughts. The life you desire will not be created by one extraordinary moment, but by many ordinary moments surrendered to me every single day. Every prayer whispered in faith, every quiet act of obedience, every choice to forgive, every decision to trust rather than fear becomes part of the beautiful work I am accomplishing within you. And when you stumble, do not run away from me, run toward me. Too many of my children believe that failure means they should hide until they become worthy again. But have you forgotten the story of Peter? After denying Jesus 3 times, he expected rejection, yet he found restoration. He discovered that my mercy was greater than his greatest failure. The same is true for you. I never asked you to walk this journey without stumbling. I ask you only to keep returning whenever you fall. A humble heart that continually comes back to me will grow stronger than a proud heart that refuses correction. Finally, my beloved child, remember that every warning I have given you is ultimately an invitation into deeper intimacy with me. I am not calling you merely to avoid sin, I am calling you to know me more fully. I am not asking you simply to escape danger. I am inviting you to experience the peace, freedom, and joy that can only be found in my presence. Let today become a turning point. Do not leave these words behind as another inspiring message you once heard. Carry them into your decisions. Carry them into your relationships. Carry them into your thoughts, your prayers, and your daily walk with me. For the child who listens with a willing heart and responds with faithful obedience will never discover that my warnings were meant to burden them. Instead, they will one day look back with grateful tears and realize that every warning was an expression of my unfailing love, gently guiding them away from destruction and faithfully leading them into the abundant life I had prepared for them from the very beginning. My beloved child, if there is one truth I long for you to carry in your heart after hearing everything I have shared with you today, it is this. As long as you still have the desire to return to me, hope has not left your life. You may feel as though you have wandered too far. You may believe you have ignored my voice too many times, made too many wrong choices, or wasted too many years chasing things that could never truly satisfy your soul. You may wonder if the distance between us has become too great to cross. But listen to me carefully. There is no road so long that my grace cannot find you, and there is no darkness so deep that my love cannot reach you. I have never measured your future by your worst failure. I have never looked at your brokenness and decided that you were no longer worthy of my love. Long before you realized you needed mercy, I had already prepared it for you. Long before you confessed your failures, I already knew every one of them, and yet I still chose to love you. My love has never depended upon your perfection. It has always been rooted in my unchanging character. I remain faithful even when you have struggled to remain faithful to me. Perhaps you are carrying the weight of regret today. Maybe there are decisions you wish you could undo, words you wish you had never spoken, relationships you wish you had never entered, or opportunities you know you wasted. Regret has a way of convincing you that your story is over. It whispers that if only you had obeyed sooner, trusted more deeply, or listened more carefully, your life would be different now. While it is true that every choice carries consequences, never believe the lie that your mistakes are greater than my ability to redeem them. I am the God who restores what seems beyond repair. I have always specialized in bringing beauty from ashes, hope from despair, and life from what others believed was finished forever. Remember the prodigal son. He walked away from his father's house believing freedom could be found somewhere else. He wasted his inheritance, lost his dignity, and found himself in a place he never imagined he would reach. Yet the turning point of his story was not when he failed, it was when he decided to come home. Before he could finish rehearsing his apology, his father was already running toward him with open arms. That is my heart toward every child who sincerely returns. I do not stand at a distance waiting for you to earn your way back. I move toward you with compassion because my desire has never been to condemn you but to restore you. Look also at Peter. He promised he would never deny Jesus. Yet before the night had ended, he denied him 3 times. Imagine the shame that filled his heart as the rooster crowed. He believed he had failed beyond recovery. Yet Jesus did not replace Peter with someone else. Instead, after the resurrection, he lovingly restored him, entrusted him with greater responsibility, and transformed the very. Peter's greatest failure did not define his future because my grace became greater than his weakness. My beloved child, if I restored Peter, do not doubt that I can restore you as well. Do not allow shame to keep you farther from the very place where healing begins. Shame tells you to hide until you become worthy again. My love invites you to come exactly as you are. Shame says you must clean yourself before approaching me. My mercy says, come to me, and I will cleanse you. Shame focuses on your past. Grace points toward the future I am still preparing. The enemy wants you to keep staring at the closed chapters of your life. I want you to lift your eyes and see the new chapter I am already writing. Perhaps you feel spiritually tired because you have tried to return before but stumbled again. Maybe you promised yourself you would change, only to find yourself repeating old habits and falling into familiar struggles. Do not mistake the battle for failure. Every step back toward me matters, even when your progress feels slow. A child learning to walk may fall many times, yet a loving father never stops reaching out his hand. He does not measure the child by the number of falls, but by the willingness to keep getting up. In the same way, I rejoice every time you choose to rise again instead of surrendering to hopelessness. My beloved child, I want you to know that your future is not waiting for the version of you that never failed. Your future is waiting for the version of you that has learned to trust my mercy more than your own strength. I can use the years you thought were wasted to teach compassion. I can use your deepest wounds to bring healing to others. I can take the very places where you once felt defeated and transform them into testimonies of my faithfulness. Nothing surrendered into my hands is ever beyond redemption. So today, release the burden you have been carrying. Stop believing that you must earn the love I freely give. Stop allowing yesterday's mistakes to silence tomorrow's calling. Lift your eyes once more. Open your heart once again. Take one step toward me, and you will discover that I have been waiting for you all along. There is hope for the one who returns. There is peace for the one who trusts again. There is forgiveness for the one who repents. There is new life for the one who believes. And there is always a place in my heart for the child who chooses, no matter how far they have wandered, to come home. My beloved child, as this message comes to a close, I do not want you to simply move on with your day as though these words were just another video, another sermon, or another moment of inspiration that will soon be forgotten. I believe that nothing about this moment has been accidental. Before you pressed play, I already knew the questions hidden in your heart. I knew the battles you have been fighting in silence. I knew the decisions standing before you, the burdens you have been carrying, and the quiet fears you have been too exhausted to explain to anyone else. That is why I called you here today, not to condemn you, but to remind you that my hand has never stopped reaching toward you. If this message has stirred something deep within your spirit, do not ignore it. Do not silence it by rushing back into distractions. Do not convince yourself that you will think about these things another day. The most important moments in life are often the quiet ones, the moments when a heart finally becomes honest before God. Let today become one of those moments. Take a deep breath and sit with me for just a little while longer. Lay every fear before me. Lay every regret before me. Lay every unanswered question before me. You do not have to carry them alone anymore. I have never asked you to be strong enough to save yourself. I have only asked you to trust the one who has already overcome what you could never overcome on your own. If there is someone you need to forgive, begin today. If there is a habit I have been asking you to leave behind, begin today. If there is a relationship that keeps pulling you away from my peace, trust me enough to place it in my hands today. If there is a burden you have carried for years, stop believing that you must continue carrying it by yourself. Every step toward me is a step toward freedom, even if that step feels small. Do not be discouraged because your journey is not finished yet. Transformation rarely happens all at once. A mighty oak begins as a small seed. A sunrise begins with the first light breaking through the darkness. In the same way, a changed life often begins with one sincere prayer, one act of surrender, one quiet decision to trust me more than your fears. Never underestimate what I can do through one heart that is fully willing to follow me. And whenever doubt tries to return, remember what you have heard today. Remember that my warnings come from love, not rejection. Remember that my silence is never abandonment. Remember that my timing is always wiser than your impatience. Remember that my peace will always lead you farther than panic ever could. Most of all, remember that my grace is greater than your greatest failure. There is nothing in your past that is stronger than my mercy, and there is nothing in your future that my faithfulness cannot sustain. Before you leave, I want to ask you to do something simple but meaningful. If this message has spoken to your heart, do not keep it only for yourself. There are people all around you who are quietly carrying the same fears, the same loneliness, and the same questions you have carried. A simple act of sharing this message may become the very answer to someone else's prayer. You may never know whose life could change because you chose to pass along a word of hope at exactly the right moment. If you believe these messages are helping people draw closer to God, I also invite you to become part of this growing community by subscribing to the channel. Every message shared here is created with prayer, care, and a sincere desire to point hearts back to the truth of God's Word. By subscribing, you become part of a mission that reaches people across the world who may be searching for hope in their darkest moments. And if you would like to help this ministry continue reaching even more hearts, you can support the work through the links provided in the description or the pinned comment. Every act of generosity helps these messages travel farther, bringing encouragement, biblical truth, and the hope found in Christ to those who may feel forgotten or alone. Give only if you feel led to do so, with a joyful and willing heart, never from pressure or obligation. Now, before we part, I want you to carry one final promise with you. No matter what tomorrow brings, you will never walk into it alone. I will go before you, stand beside you, and remain faithful behind you. When you are uncertain, I will be your wisdom. When you are weak, I will be your strength. When you are afraid, I will be your peace. And when the road becomes difficult, my love will remain constant, guiding you one faithful step at a time. Go forward with confidence, my beloved child. Leave fear behind. Leave yesterday behind. Leave every chain I have already broken behind. Walk into this new season with your eyes fixed on me, your heart anchored in my promises, and your spirit resting in the unshakable assurance that the one who called you is faithful. I have never abandoned you, I will never forsake you, and I will continue leading you safely until the day you see the fullness of everything I have prepared for you. Go in my peace, remain in my love, and never forget you are deeply known, completely loved, and forever held in my hands.